One of the most underdeveloped skills I see in all players is the ability to read comp matchups and understand how they affect playstyle. To look at your team comp versus the enemy team comp and be able to predict how the fights are going to go down, then obviously adjusting your playstyle accordingly. This skill is especially important in ladder, where we often see these sort of unconventional team comps. I'll focus mostly on reading the comps in this video, and then adjusting play in the next ones. The first thing to look at are the tank lineups. Teams generally fit into 3 different playstyles, and the main tank can be an initial indicator of that, although there is a lot of overlap, so don't think about it as a concrete rule. Reinhardt is very brawl focused. He wants to force fights at close range and smack the enemy team around. Orisa is mostly poke focused. She likes playing around shield break and range damage. Winston and Hammond like to spread out and focus on, duels, map control, clumping the enemy team up, but their playstyle is sort of separate from this, because depending on their team comp, they'll use their control at multiple angles to either get really effective poke, if maybe they're playing double sniper, or to just collapse on the enemy team and brawl it out. Maybe they're diving in using Tracer and Genji. So pretty much every team comp will be a mix of poking and brawling, but it's going to lean towards one of them, and the DPS picks fit into this in the same way. For example, even though Orisa is generally more comfortable in a poke environment, we've seen her played recently with Reaper and Mei, who lean the playstyle of the team in that opposite brawl direction, and this is where the idea of reading the comp matchup comes in. Outside of mirror matchups, one team will tend to be better at brawling than the other, and this team will generally be trying to force the engage. The 2 main ways of doing this are chasing down the enemy team, usually by diving, or by forcing the objective so the other team has to contest and come into engage range. And this is the most important part of the matchup to figure out, who is starting the engage and who is trying to catch the engage. For a general example, imagine Rein here on attack with an Orisa on defense. Rein wants to brawl, Orisa wants to poke. Rein's team is going to have to spend time closing distance using cover and shields to start the engage, and Orisa's team will try to sort of burn them down on the approach and catch that engage. Rein's team wants to reach Orisa's with enough health and resources to overwhelm her, and Orisa's team wants to have done enough poke before then to make that difficult. Pretty simple. For a more in-depth example, if we look at this comp compared to this comp, we can see that Dallas's heroes have some poke but a lot of brawl potential, and Guangzhou's heroes have some brawl but a lot of poke potential. So just by weighing up these 2 comps, we should be able to predict how each team will play. Dallas will want to pressure the objective to force Guangzhou to contest and get drawn into a brawl, and Guangzhou will want to wear Dallas down using poke without ever having to commit to that brawl. Remember though that Dallas's only way of drawing Guangzhou into engage range is by forcing the objective, and on control maps it takes a long time to reach 100% cap progress, so even though Dallas are building that point percent, Guangzhou will be very happy to trade 20-30% cap for the time it takes to safely poke Dallas down. This point of Ilios is quite open too, with lots of potential angles for Guangzhou's mobile poke heroes, so as long as they're patient it should just be a matter of time. All this we're able to predict just from knowing the comps and the map, and although it might seem quite simple once you've thought about it, so many players forget this mid-game. They don't try to read the matchup, they don't predict the fight, they just autopilot this sort of default playstyle that often really hurts their effectiveness. There is a lot of nuance to comp matchups, especially once you start getting into specific hero picks and ultimate usage, but the core thing to understand is that one team will want to force an engage, and the other will want to catch that engage. And being able to quickly figure out which is which and how each hero slots into that is a really important skill for players to have. Next time you're playing or watching the game, really try and build that habit of reading these matchups and predicting how the fight will go down.